Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. I'm your host, Joe Jackson. Alongside me, as always, is my co-host, Kraig Bowers, here to preview Purdue at Iowa. It is a Tuesday, February 4th game, 7 p.m. Eastern time on Peacock. We're getting down to the stretch. The last, 9 games, I believe, for Purdue. They are sitting 9-2 in Big Ten play. Just was announced really this morning as of recording that Owen Freeman, the starting center for Iowa, is out for the rest of the season. Going to have surgery on his finger and will not be there. Pretty big implications. He's one of, if not their best player, and he's by far their best big. So we'll get into kind of all of that and the player personnel and stuff like that we always do. But Kraig, what are kind of your overall thoughts on Iowa?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's just a big downer for Iowa and Iowa fans and for Owen Freeman that he's out for the rest of the year. And what that's 2 major Big Ten players we've heard in the last few days that are now out for the rest of the season. And I mean, you never want to see it, right? Obviously, it probably makes this game more manageable for Purdue, but that's not really the point here. You just hate to see anybody like that, especially somebody as good as Freeman and as good as Barnhizer earlier this week, get injured and not be able to finish out their Big Ten season. So I guess first and foremost, that's the first thing on my mind. Obviously, going to Iowa, you expect a shootout to some degree. I mean, we'll get into the numbers here in a second, but Iowa's Iowa, right? Iowa is going to Iowa. They are a really good offensive team, and they are equally as bad defensively. And quite frankly, I'd have to actually pull the numbers from the last few years, but feel like this is one of the worst in terms of being bad defensively and just seemingly not wanting to play defense at times that I can remember from this Iowa team. But 13-8 on the season, 4-6 in Big Ten play coming in. Haven't really beat anybody in the upper half of the Big Ten. Those wins come over Northwestern, Nebraska, IU, and Penn State. They come into this game 63rd in the net, but they are 0-7 in quad 1 win opportunities. So whether we're talking the Big Ten season or the season at large, just a team that's really struggled to try to pull off a bigger win, against like a quad 1 type opportunity. Come in about the same place in KenPom right now at 66. So a team that I don't know, like I've wanted to buy in at certain times in this season just because of what they can do offensively. They got shooters friggin' everywhere. And when they had Freeman down low, they had some post presence, but been hard to really buy into them because they've yet to show that they can beat, I guess, upper level teams this year.
Yeah, this Iowa team is just awful defensively, like not even bad, just awful. I think it's by the numbers the second worst currently under Fran McCaffrey at Iowa in their history. It is by far the worst during Big Ten play. And the offense is good. It is very good, but it's not quite the super Iowa elite level that we sometimes get and sometimes expect. So, right, like truly coming into this game, my thoughts like Purdue needed to win this anyways, even with Freeman, and I thought that even with Freeman, they wouldn't have really much issue at all. But it turns into a game where this is oddly enough almost a must-win. Like you just can't lose to Iowa now. Like it shouldn't happen. Even if it's on the road, like I understand it's not necessarily going to be the easiest thing in the world, but just I keep looking at this game. It's just like, Purdue cannot afford to lose this for seeding purposes, for chasing the Big Ten title, like anything like that. This team now, the one worry before we get into just specific matchups and all that is like you sometimes get these injuries to star guys or just things like that, and then the team can kind of just rally for a game. And this will be the first game after like the Freeman, it's announced. Similarly, last year, right, Diebler's first game as new head coach comes against Purdue. He didn't change the program in day one, right? But there's just something about like a change or something like that can kind of force players to step up. So just being able to go right away, I think Purdue needs to just kind of put their foot on the gas right away and just try to put this one away.
No, I'm with you. And I think just with what Purdue's done in terms of their increased defensive intensity and defensive pressure, especially on the perimeter, it's one that you would like to see them kind of slow Iowa down right outside of the gate because they will play a little bit quicker. You know, they come into this game ranked 26 per Ken Palm in offensive efficiency. They're 30th in tempo. You read through the rest of those offensive stats: 4th in effective field goal percentage, 12th in 3-point percentage, 11th in 2-point percentage. And then, like, randomly, they're 302nd in the country in free throw percentage, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
They don't take a lot of them. So, you know, maybe it's a rhythm thing. They're not a team that just gets to the free throw line a lot. I'm going to be really interested to see how much we can turn them over, because they do rank 10th in the country in terms of turnover percentage on offense. So, you know, Purdue's kind of thrived defensively on really forcing turnovers. I put a tweet out today that kind of highlighted the change in the turnovers Purdue's been able to create since January 1st. But this is a team that really takes care of the ball well. And then on the flip side of that, they rank 300th in terms of limiting, in terms of the opponent's field goal percentage, 342nd in the country in terms of the 2-point percentage they allow teams to get. And they give up a lot of offensive rebounds as well. The one thing they won't really do is put Purdue on the foul line a ton, at least based upon what the numbers say. Now, it'll be interesting with Freeman in there to see if they do. But if you don't have a lot of interest in playing defense, it's not a big surprise that you don't foul a lot either, I guess, at the end of the day. As we kind of move into some player matchups here, if Freeman was still playing, I think we'd probably start with him, right? But I guess since he's not, let's maybe talk about the other 4 starters that we know are going to be starting in this game. And then after that, a lot of question marks about who's going to take Freeman's minutes. I guess let's just start with Brock Harding and Drew Thielwell. Brock Harding's a 6-foot sophomore point guard, averaging 9 points a game and 6 assists a game. A lot of guys like to call him Braden Smith light. I think there was a lot of hope that he would take maybe even a little bit bigger jump this year, but a guy that's got really good court vision, really likes it, takes care of the ball well. And then Thielwell, who comes in from Morehead State, 6'3" senior, pretty shifty, pretty athletic card that can really get downhill, averaging 10.7 points a game and 3.1 assists a game as well. I guess just between those two guards, I guess I would, in my mind, call them point guard and shooting guard. What jumps out to you about these two guys and what they've been able to accomplish?
Yeah, starting with Harding, he's super fast with the ball, like really, really fast with the ball. And he is not physically 6 foot, 165, but like he can get downhill with his speed. Hasn't been great finishing around the rim, but can still put that pressure on you. Has also improved the shooting this year. I don't actually know. Yeah, improved the shooting a bit this year, especially from like mid-range area. And then a really, really good passer, like top 5 probably passer conservatively in the conference, maybe top 3. It might be him, Fears, and Braden, just being in that top 3. And that's what you have to look out for with him, is he will find guys. He has that ability to just kind of drag guys out and put guys in the right spot. He's going to push the ball, right? Like Iowa does all the time. And so I expect CJ to take him and just pick him up full court and work on him that way. And then Thelwell's been awesome. He's been an awesome find for them in the portal. He is one of the best perimeter defenders probably in the conference. It doesn't always show because of Iowa's defense, but right, he's I think he has a higher steal percentage than Braden on the year. Not in Big Ten play, but I believe he does on the year. If not, they're like neck and neck. They're like tied. Okay. Really, really good defender. I expect will be on Braden Smith. He's also he's knocking down shots at a high rate. He can get to the rim. He can hit pull-ups. Like he's just worked really, really well within their offense. One of the most efficient shooters really in college basketball. You can say that about him and another guy we'll talk about in a second, but that's their best defender. And it's not like he's like Big Ten Defender of the Year, but you do have to respect what he can do defensively, especially just with his really quick hands. And Harding has quick hands as well.
Yeah, and I've been impressed with both of them, obviously offensively, and like you said, Thelwell in terms of his defensive acuity on the court as well. And then we kind of get into their 3 and their 4, and Josh Dix and Peyton Sanford that brings some size and some length. And one thing that I'm really interested in hearing about from you is how we guard their 4 spot with Caleb and TKR, whether this game lends itself to a little bit more Cam Heide minutes just given the matchup or not. But Josh Dix, the 6'5" junior, kind of a bucket to me in terms of just the type of guy that can score at multiple levels. He's really good in terms of his mid-range game. Comes in shooting 45% from 3 on 4.7 attempts per game, 13.3 points, 3.1 rebounds. And then Peyton Sandford at 6'7". A lot of people thought he might go to the NBA last year after coming off a really, really good 3-point shooting year. Somebody with that kind of length and that kind of shot making ability from outside. Maybe a little bit of a down year this year compared to last year, only shooting 34% from 3, which is still fine, right? But it's not an extreme level that we've seen from him before. Comes in averaging 16 points a game. He's definitely, with Freeman out, probably going to be the guy that's going to take the most shot attempts. Does average close to 6 rebounds a game and 3 assists. So I think that's another thing that impresses me a little bit, Joe, as you look across these assist numbers, 1 through 4. All 4 of these guys are decent in terms of distributing the ball as well.
Yeah, and that's just part of the Iowa offense, of that free-flowing, kind of making cuts, live read and react type plays. Josh Dix has had a rough, like, 2 of the past 3 games, but especially before that stretch, you could argue he's been their best player. Like, just straight up has been their best player. Definition of a 3-level score, can get to the rim, converting really well, can get to floaters, gets to the mid-range, and then obviously has been elite from 3. He's just a guy you can't let get easy looks, and even if you don't let him get easy looks, he still might put 18 on you, right? He's just that type of scorer, and has been that good in terms of just getting to the spots that he wants to. Isn't overly explosive or anything, but just has he's a dude that's just always on balance. And so if you're off balance just a bit, he's going to take advantage and get to the spot that he wants. And then we know who Peyton Sandford is at this point, right? Elite 3-point shooter. I don't really care what the percentage says. Like, you don't want to let him get going because he is liable to knock down 6.5, right? And I think he did that against Nebraska, and went like 6 of 8 in the second half. He's a guy that you do not want to let him see one go through, because then in his mind, he probably already thinks he's one of the best shooters, and that's fair. But once one goes through, he definitely thinks he's like the best shooter in the country, and he is one of them. Obviously, I don't think either of them are that great of defenders, and they do play smaller with both of them at the 3 and the 4 in terms of, like, right, no double big. I would expect Lawyer on Dix and to start first on Sanford, just given the length that First can provide in that. But also, with how Iowa plays, I expect Purdue to probably switch a lot. And so some of these matchups don't matter as much. Whoever they start at center, I would expect TKR to take. The only exception would be if they go really small and go Traore, who we'll talk about. If they go him at the 5, then First maybe doesn't take Sanford, but even then probably still does. But yeah, if Harding and Thelwall are more of, like, I would say more of the they're more like, hey, we're good facilitators and we can also shoot and score well. Sanford and Dix are more like, hey, we score really well and we can also still move the ball when needed.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Normally we would kind of go here and well, first of all, you talking about somebody post injury just deciding to go off. And in my head, if I was in this game, it's because Sanford came in thinking I've got to dominate and take over, and he just gets locked in and goes for 30 or something like that. But
yeah,
normally we would talk about the 5th starter here, but don't necessarily 100% know who that's going to be. So I'm just going to pose this question to you, Joe, and let you kind of talk about the 2 or 3 guys that you think might take his minutes, and then we can hit on a couple of the other guard wing type of subs that'll be coming off the bench. But I guess, how do you see Iowa managing Freeman being out, and who do you see taking those minutes for this team? And tell us a little bit about them, I guess.
I'm worried that this comes back and is just like Iowa, wins this game and then just looks stupid. But man, like, Iowa has struggled without Owen Freeman on the floor. I'm pulling up the exact numbers right here. They are, I know this is great live or podcasting right here. With Owen Freeman off the floor in Big Ten play, or I'm just going to do the full season. I know this. There we go. They are the worst team at protecting the rim with Owen Freeman off the floor in the country. They are 12th worst at protecting the paint. And then they are not great in terms of mid ranges and things like that, and defending the three and all of that. Like, just they are not they haven't been good defensively. It has gone from not good to really, really, really bad when Owen Freeman's off the floor. And giving up mid range shots, giving up threes. They just it hasn't been great. So in terms of offense, it's I assume just a lot more on the guards, and you're going to take his usage and give it to kind of split it up between the four we mentioned. It's if I was to guess, it's some mix of Riley Mulvey, Laji Dembele, and probably see they have like 4 to 5 bigs that don't really play minutes, like Riley Mulvey, Evan Bronze, Chris Tajo, even Cooper Cook to a degree, and then Laji Dembele. He's the only one that has played. So Dembele might, just because he has started. I can kind of go through these quickly. Like, I think all of them, or not all of them, Dembele and Mulvey, I think if when they're in, they're probably the two and that you have to worry about the most in terms of rebounding. They can really get on the glass. Dembele has been able to step out and knock down a three. Hasn't been great on the interior. Not a great rim protector at all. Mulvey's a guy that, like, athletically isn't quite at the level you want to be for a Big Ten center, but he's one of those that, like, he can make up for it, which is kind of just his effort and being in the right spots. So if I was to guess, it's those two take a lot of the minutes. Mulvey hasn't been too much of an offensive threat, mainly just kind of dump offs around the rim. And then, Tajo is a freshman that is a pretty good rebounder that has some athleticism. Cooper Cook hasn't played in a bit. I think he's still coming off injury. And then the only other guy really, he's not really a big, is Seydou Traore. He's 6'7". He's like, the upside for him defensively is crazy. Not a super, good perimeter offensive player, but he is very, very athletic, 6'7", a really long wingspan. He's a guy that, like, realistically in this game, he could play center. He also could guard Braden Smith. He's just one of those dudes that can kind of do a bit of everything. So I know it's not the most clear-cut answers that I just gave out of their big room, but, like, that's kind of where they're at. And even some reporting, on Iowa from Twitter, and that is like, they don't really know what they're going to do either. But to summarize, Mulvey and Dembele, I would expect those two to take a lot of the minutes. Biggest thing is keep them off the glass. This is not a good rebounding team, but those are two guys that individually haven't rebounded terribly.
Right. And, maybe in some previous years, there might have been a little bit of worry of, like, oh no, this is like going to force a team to basically go full out small ball. And could that give Purdue trouble with kind of bigger, more lumbering type of centers in the middle of the paint? I'm not talking just in recent couple of years, but looking back over the last 10 years of Purdue basketball, I don't think this Purdue version of this team would necessarily struggle so much with somebody trying to go small, because we know that First is athletic and mobile as he is at 6'10", 6'11", and TKR definitely, we've seen him held his own, and when he gets, kind of switched up top and has to defend a guard or a wing at times either. So if Iowa goes small, it's not something that necessarily scares the heck out of me from a Purdue side of things. And quite frankly, if you're Matt Painter or TKR right now, you're just absolutely licking your chops looking at this game in terms of, Iowa's one of the worst 2-point defensive teams in the country anyway. Like, literally, let's see, 342nd in the country in 2-point percentage defense. And I think what you said, there's 358 teams in the country or something like that.
364.
One of these shows, I'm going to remember how many total teams there are in NCAA college basketball, but they are down there, boys and girls. That's the important part. They rank really, really low, and you take Freeman out of the mix, and it could get ugly real fast in the paint for Iowa. I guess a couple of other guards and wings maybe we need to talk about: Carter Kingsbury and Price Sanford. Obviously, Price being Peyton's brother, averaging 8.1 points per game, 2.6 rebounds. Somebody that did start at one point in time during this year, I do believe, as well. And Carter's played 6.8 minutes a game. He did get in the Ohio State game for 6 or 7 minutes the other day. I guess, what do you see from Price and Carter on this team?
Yeah, Carter, he could, if they go small, could in theory get a few more minutes. He's been more of just a kind of blowout type player. Like, that's when he kind of gets his minutes, not not high usage, anything like that. Um, yeah, I don't really have much more on him. And then Price Sanford is Peyton Sanford from earlier in his career. Like they are brothers for a reason, and it shows with how they play. Another really elite shooter. Now, obviously, I think Payton's a better probably facilitator and kind of driver of the ball, especially just where they stand currently. But Price is a guy you cannot leave open. He is shooting 38.7% from three on the year. Most of his twos are probably mid range, just kind of one dribble type pull ups, just being able to get to that look. Not a great defender, but right. If Iowa's going to win, I don't think they're winning this game because of their defense. They're probably winning because guys like Price and Peyton like knock down a flurry of threes.
Yeah. And I mean, to that point, 3-point percentage wise, you just roll down this team. Sanford's at 34%, Dick's 45%, Thilwell 43%, Harding 39%, Price Sanford at 39%, Dembele at 39% on just about one attempt per game as well. A team that can certainly light it up from outside. So I guess as we transition now and look at the actual matchup, how does Purdue defensively try to slow this team down? You've seen some games this year where teams have been able to really slow them down. Ohio State did it the other day. In terms of limiting their point totals, it's not always just a pure shootout. So I guess in your mindset, and we've already talked about the fact they don't turn the ball over too much. So see whether Purdue can force them into some turnovers like they have other teams lately or not. How do you see Purdue attacking them defensively and trying to slow this high-powered offense down?
Yeah, I think it starts with picking up, CJ picking up full courts, Jakari picking up full courts, Miles picking up full court when they're in, just trying to jam the ball handler with mainly going to be Harding, but could be Thelwell. Payne Sanford is also a guy that can bring it up. Well, any of them can really bring it up. I would expect a lot of just switching. They run a lot of off-ball action and pin downs and things of that nature. Like I would expect, I don't know if TKR will switch onto guards, but everybody else I expect, maybe not Burgess, but everybody else I expect would probably just switch everything and just try to basically not play from too far behind defensively in terms of like trailing screens and things of that nature. So that way you can kind of keep in fronts. Now, Iowa will ISO. They have no issue ISOing at times and taking some tougher shots that they're good enough shooters to go in. So that is the concern as well. But without Freeman, it just changes the dynamic of their offense too. Of like when Freeman's in, he's somebody they can just kind of throw in the post and let him go to work. They don't really have that now. And so I expect them to push the pace even more. Try to just get up a bunch of jumpers, and Purdue's got to be able to limit those. I also think like Purdue, for everything that they've been great defensively at, they've been pretty bad at terms of protecting the rim. And so I don't know if Iowa's necessarily a team that like dominates the rim, but at the same time they have dudes that can get downhill bits and get all the way there. Freeman's their biggest threat there, but still, like just trying to keep them in front feels, I know that's like every defensive philosophy, but it feels very important in this game just to not let them get little advantages. Because I think the worst thing that you can do is let Iowa get like 4 open looks to start the game. And that's something that Purdue has done, right? They're willing to give up threes. That's kind of been their defensive philosophy. So maybe they do still just high hedge and keep their thing and try to force turnovers, but I wouldn't be shocked to see a lot of switching also.
And I guess in that regard, Purdue as a principle doubles the post, right? Given where Iowa's at in terms of their big men and what Iowa can do from a 3-point shooting standpoint, do you expect Purdue to just stick to their principles from that standpoint, or may they maybe leave a little bit more one-on-one down low?
I would still expect them to double still, mainly just because like I think if Iowa was going to throw the ball to one of their bigs, Purdue is just like, all right, we can get a turnover right now. Like that.
Okay.
This is the time to get one. So that's why I would expect them to probably still do it. But I do understand the reasoning of like, hey, maybe we don't actually need to help.
Right. I guess my other question here, and we all know Iowa tends to play fast. They're 30th in the country in terms of tempo. I don't know that we've seen it quite as much this year, but in some previous years, it felt like when Purdue played teams that wanted to go really fast, that they kind of really made a point and an effort to slow the game down and to limit possessions. Is that something that you think going into this game? Maybe Purdue just tries to play a little bit more methodical, tries to slow the overall game, or a little bit more up and down.
I think slow it down. Now they're still going to take their chances to run when they get them. My thought is like you slow it down for the same reason that you slowed it down last year for Edie, and it's that if you let your offense get set, you're just probably going to get a good look. And so, right when it's there, take it and run. They're still going to do that, but like I don't think they need to force it just because one, now it can in theory take Iowa a little bit out of rhythm, and two, like if you get into your sets, get into your high pick and rolls, like you're just the way you
You're
don't
gonna
have
eat.
success is the same thing that happened against Ohio State, just simply missing open shots. Like is my thought.
Right. So on the other end, Purdue offensively, I guess you kind of started to go down this road here, but I personally just obviously with where I was going to be at defensively in the post and the fact that their 2-point percentage defense is so terrible, I think it starts right with TKR. It's going to be a TKR feature real early on, whether that's pick and roll and getting them in the short roll or just throwing them true post ups. Will Iowa double post, or do they normally double? Do you think they'll have to just because of given the scenario here? Where else do you see Purdue really being able to exploit Iowa's defense?
Yeah, I would expect TKR to get the ball in the post a bunch, especially if they stay one-on-one. If I were to guess, I think Iowa starts probably one-on-one and then quickly starts doubling after TKR in theory rattles off 3 buckets or something like that. They will double. They have done it. I don't think it's like a hard and fast rule like Purdue where it's like we're going to double the post, but they will do it. And then beyond that, like Iowa's just been pretty bad defending pick and rolls. 38th percentile in terms of defending the ball handlers, 7th percentile in terms of defending roll men. When Freeman's in, Freeman plays more of a high hedge, but like their backside rotations are not good. With Moley, with Dembele, they probably still will, and that's probably still going to be their base of kind of more of a hedge. That's where, in theory, you can get some kickouts for 3 as well, but should be a lot of TKR short roll. If they're in that hedge, it should probably be a pretty big TKR scoring game in that sense. Maybe a little bit less Braden, but he could also just turn the corner and get downhill too. Braden also probably will just like this might be more of a if it gets into crunch time, but like Braden's probably aside from Thelwell gonna like every matchup he has and just might be able to go and take him off the bounce too. But yeah, this is like it just feels like I'm repeating at this point every game, but it's gonna be Braden and TKR, and then you're gonna get some maybe this game more than normal. You might get a few more 3-point attempts.
Right. There's a prediction I'd like to make going into this game that I'm not going to utter because people get really mad when people talk about it before a game starts. So I'm not gonna say it related to a certain player, maybe potentially doing certain things in certain games. Just gonna leave it lay. But the thought is in the back of my head going into this game. Keys to the game or things that you think need to happen for Purdue to be able to win this game?
I think key one is just making Iowa take tough shots. If Iowa makes them, which they can, all right, you can still overcome it. But if you're forcing them to take tough shots, you're more likely to force some misses. And if that happens, I think you're in a good spot. Because the other thing, right, is Purdue has not taken many threes as of late, and in large part because their mid-range game has been the best in the country. But in a world where like Purdue's making every shot they want, but if Iowa's making more threes, that's where they can kind of cancel things out. So just making Iowa take tougher shots. That's easier said than done. And then really the only other key is just knock down open shots. Like they're going to be there unless something goes crazy wrong. I guess you do have to handle the ball. Iowa will force some turnovers. Handle the ball and knock down open shots. Like those 3 things happen. I just find it hard for Purdue to not walk away with a win unless there's just some insane shooting performance from Iowa, which, hey, that can always happen.
Yeah, and I'm with you on a couple of things there, especially turnovers. Every recent Purdue fan has seen McCaffrey decide to press at times and has seen some Purdue teams really struggle against that. Even though they may not be good defensively, it seems like they can create a decent amount of turnovers. They force 19.9 turnover percentage from their opponents per game coming into this one. So obviously limiting turnovers for me would be a big one. I'll say the two other things. One, offensive rebounding. I was not good about keeping other teams off the glass. And I think with Freeman out, that just amplifies even more. I think there's a chance here for First and TKR, and quite frankly, Jakari and CJ when they're in the game. It seems like they've been really good in terms of guards, that offensive rebound. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for second chance points. And I guess the last thing for me would just be trying to contain dribble penetration from Iowa. To me, if we can kind of keep them outside of the paint and force them into just trying to beat us as a three-point shooting team, with as much as Purdue's going to eat down low and in my mind should get second chances often as the night goes on. I'm with you. I have a hard time seeing how Purdue doesn't walk out of there with a win, but we've seen crazy things happen after injury, so you just never know.
Yep, Big Ten game on the road. Like Purdue is the better team, but it's the Big Ten. It's on the road. It's February. Like things just happen, so Purdue still has to come out strong, play well. But yeah, I think Purdue is the more talented team, and you got 9 games left. This is probably their easiest remaining game of the season, maybe. I guess home against Rutgers, maybe you could argue as well. But either way, this is a game just got to take care of business, move on to the next one, and just kind of figure it out from there. So it is a 7 p.m. Eastern time tip on Peacock, Tuesday, February 4th. We will be live after the game ends, so make sure to like and subscribe to tune into the live show as we break it all down for you there. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will see you all then.